Hey y'all, thanks for tuning back into Chickanic. Hope everybody's having a great week. It is almost springtime, and I know you guys are itching to throw some gasoline into your machines and get to trimming, but if you want to stay out of the repair shop this spring, stop right now. Because 70% of you are going to make this mistake. Now, although our shop would get in over 2,000 pieces of equipment every single year, the huge majority of those, hundreds, would come in March and April. And with numbers like that, you might think there was a wide variety of different kinds of repairs, but the truth is, 70% of all the units that came in at that time had the same exact problem. And if you avoid this mistake, it'll keep you out of the shop and save you time, money, and frustration. So what brought in 70% of all these trimmers, blowers, weed eaters, walk-behind mowers, and riders? Water. Now, I know what y'all are thinking. There is absolutely no way that water is in your machine. I mean, you left it underneath the shed or in the garage, or you left your gas tank in the shed or under the garage. But I promise you guys, 70% of you that have units that will not start this spring have water in them. And let me show you why. Now, I made this video a while back so I could show how fast fresh fuel would turn bad just from collecting condensation out of the air. Now, it does this because gasoline is hygroscopic, which means it has a tendency to attract and retain water molecules from its surroundings. Now, as you watch, you can see the condensation gather on the inside of the cup and fall down into the gasoline. This video is about an hour long, condensed into 51 seconds, but by about 45 minutes, the entire cup is full of water. You can see how cloudy the gasoline turns. Now, the best way to minimize water absorption into your gasoline is to just make sure that it is in an airtight container. That way you can limit its exposure to the humid air. So, for example, this is a mower that we just finished repairing, and this thing is pretty much brand new. You can tell it's only been used one season. There's barely any scuffs on the tires. This mower has been very gently used, but it would not start. And the entire reason it wouldn't was because of the gas. Now, the gas actually smells good. Can't even tell that it's bad. But if you put it up here in the light, you can see water is heavier than the gasoline. All sinks to the bottom. That little tiny bit of water is the difference between a machine running and not. Now, the customer did say that it was running whenever they last ran it and had no issues with it, but they did just put some fuel in it. So I'm going to bet that water was in their gas can. Now, every time we had a customer pick up their machine that had water in it, we always reminded them, make sure at home to check your gas can, because that definitely could have been the culprit. But you don't know how many times they'd come back saying, oh, I had the same issue that I had before, and they poured water right back into their machine. Now, although I do believe this condensation can happen just in your unit sitting by itself in its own gas tank, I think the majority of the time it happens from your storage gas tank. Now, depending on where you live and your humidity, it could make a difference, because if you live in somewhere like Arkansas where it is super humid all year long, you're definitely going to see this issue more often. So let's go over what you need to do to avoid the repair shop this year. First thing, if you don't have it already, you need some kind of fuel extraction device. Now, the smallest one you can get is like these little pipettes. I use this on every single unit that I work on, because the first thing I do is check the fuel. Because all you got to do, since the water sinks to the bottom, is get down to the bottom, give it a little suck. It stays in the pipette so you can see if it's got water in it or not. And then you know whether you've got to dump the gas or not. Now, this doesn't always work on bigger stuff, so you might have to buy a different one. We have these ones here that are 500 milliliters. You could also get them in 200 milliliters. All these I'll leave in the description box below. Well, I keep two of the 500 milliliter ones because we use one for gas extraction to get to the bottom of fuel tanks and stuff like that. It also has an adapter if we want to get real deep down in the rider tanks. But also we keep one for oil because we can suck the oil out, drain it out, and we know that it's in push mowers, it's exactly 500 milliliters to replace. So instead of the guessing game of pouring some in and it might be stuck to the sides and not being able to check it really well, we know exactly how much oil goes, even in the big riders. All we have to do is suck it up in this measuring fuel extractor and put in exactly how much oil each unit needs. When it comes to your gas cans, don't blindly just pour it into your unit and hope that it's going to work. You can just simply get some kind of clear container, pour a little bit in there. Since the water is heavier than the gasoline, it comes out first. So you'll be able to see it in something clear. That's another reason why a lot of times customers would come in and they say, oh, I put that in multiple mowers and this is the only one messed up. If it had water in it, how is it only messing up one of my units? Well, usually the first thing you fill up, most of the water or all of the water comes out in that first fill up. So the next one you fill up might not have the water in it. Now, when it comes to these small engines, gas does not act the same in them as it does like in your car. The gas will start breaking down in 60 to 90 days, especially if you're not using some kind of fuel stabilizer. If you have straight gas sitting in your garage that's been sitting for 6 months or longer, definitely check to see if there's water in it. And if there's not, use it in your car and get fresh fuel. Now, when it comes to two-stroke gas, it's a little different. I don't know why, but nobody wants to get rid of it. They've already, purchased a gallon of gas, bought a $4 bottle of oil, maybe added some fuel stabilizer to it, and it doesn't matter if it's been sitting for years. You still want to try it. And what do I say to that? Try it. When working on the bigger stuff like the walk-behind mowers or the riders, definitely don't do it. Just put that old gas in your car and go get new gas, because that is a lot to take apart to have to get into the carburetor, remove the gas tank, clean out all the crevices. But if it's your 2-cycle, everything's pretty much right here. You got a primer bulb, you can try that gas. If it doesn't work, you can always pour it out, prime some fresh fuel in there, get all that water or whatever might be inside your carburetor, and you're good to go. But if it's not running correctly, that is always the first thing to check. Now I'm gonna let you in on how I mix my 2-stroke gas, and it lasts for years. Now, first off, I don't buy ethanol-free fuel. It started off with just a lack of ability to get it, and then it ended up to I found what works and I'm just sticking with it. So for example, at my shop, I would buy 2 gallons of 87 or 89 octane. I would mix a 5.2 ounce bottle of the Echo Power blend and give it a little squirt of ethanol shield. And I know a lot of you are going to say, I don't believe in those snake oils of fuel stabilizer, but I'm just telling you what works. Out of the thousands of units, believe me, lots of customers left their stuff sitting there for a year at a time or longer. And it just seemed like when I put the ethanol shield and everything that I worked on, I could go back to it 7-8 months later and it still run. Which if you just had straight gas and oil, you got about 6 months and it's not going to run anymore. Now that's what I used at the shop because I went through way too many units, but at my house, I used the best oil. I never really needed much 2-stroke gasoline at my house because a lot of times when I was going to use one of my units, I would take it up to the shop, service it, grease it. Maybe if it was chainsaw, I'd sharpen the blade. So I'd always fill it up with fuel before I brought it home. But some of the things that I have sitting here that I rarely ever took up to the shop that I don't use that often, I always use Red Armor in. I keep a 1-gallon gas tank just because I don't use it that much. And you might want to think about that. If you have a 2-gallon tank and you're only planning on getting 1 gallon of gas because you know that's all you're going to go through in the next, 6 months or so, I would highly recommend making the purchase to a 1-gallon tank because all that extra air in there makes your fuel go bad faster and it will lead to more condensation to make more water in your fuel. So I keep a 1-gallon tank at the house. I get the regular gas, just like I told you. I keep it marked Red Armor, and in that I buy the bottles of Red Armor oil. Now they either have the 2.6 ounce or the 5.2, depending on if you're mixing 1 gallon or 2 gallons at a time. And they also have 2.5 gallons or 5 gallons. They go up from there, but I'm not going to use that at my house. So I mix one of these bottles with 1 gallon of gas. Now, before I brought my big jug from my storefront home, this I would just put a squirt in like 5-gallon gas tanks. It's even a little tiny squirt in the 1 gallon. But you could actually, if you've got the smaller bottle that you can buy, and I'll leave all this in the description box below if you want to get your own. It's a cap full for 1 gallon of gas. So I broke my cap, so I still have to do a little measuring. But it's just a cap full for 1 gallon. And I'm telling you guys, my mix lasts forever. I use the Red Armor oil because it knocks out the deposits left by all the old stuff. It gets rid of the varnish. It's really good formulated. It's a semi-synthetic. The ethanol shield, I know a lot of you say it's snake oil, but I just use it because it seems like, to me, my stuff always runs when I do it. It has oils in it to help rejuvenate all the rubber parts in your machines, like your diaphragms in your carburetor, your fuel lines, your primer bulbs, and then it also eats droplets of water. So if any kind of little bit of condensation gets in there, it'll turn it into this little white dust that it'll burn up in your piston and cylinder later. So, don't believe me this stuff lasts a long time? Check this out. Now, y'all might remember these 2 steel backpack blowers from my True Fuel video. If you've been around for a while, you know all about that one. But I have not ran this blower here, the BR380, and that's an old steel blower. That's probably 20 years old. I have not ran that one since the video. It still has some of the Red Armor oil that I put in it after the video. This one I've been running, so I think it's got fresher oil in it, but we haven't really run either one of them because I have a handheld blower that I use most of the time. So even with my 20-year-old extremely neglected steel backpack blower, using my mix, I'm confident it's going to start every single time. Before I head out though, I did have a lot of comments on my last video inquiring about some of the tools I was using, and I didn't say anything, which I totally forgot. But my new nut driver set that I got is Wiha. I got them off Amazon. They're not expensive at all, and I love them. I've been using Wiha tools forever now. I love their torques. I love everything. So I will leave a link in the description box below if you want to get a set of your own. So that's it, guys. Out of thousands of units, 70% of my customers could have stayed away from the shop if they knew this information. Now, if you've got a 2-stroke and you think there's water in it, like I said, guys, get some kind of fuel extraction device. I keep them all in the description box below if you want to get your own. If it's in your 2-stroke, just go ahead and pour it out. Get you some fresh fuel in there. Make sure to prime all that water out of your tank. If it's in something like a lawnmower, you are going to have to take the carburetor apart. I do already have a video for that. If you want to see it, check it out right here.